shifted his four legs under the observation deck. His blue skin changed color slightly as he watched the Galactic Council meeting below. As a diplomat from the Oran Collective, he had seen many new species join the galactic community, but none quite like the humans. The humans had been part of the council for 6 months now. They sat quietly at their assigned table, taking notes on everything. Their representative, ambassador, was a small woman with dark hair. She listened more than she spoke. When she did talk, her voice was calm and measured. "Look at them," growled Commander from the Empire. His massive frame cast a shadow over smaller form. "No claws, no fangs, no natural armor. How did such weak creatures even survive on their home planet?" Tilted his head. "Perhaps weakness is not always what it appears to be." Laughed a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "They have no real military. Their ships are slow. Their weapons are primitive. They barely qualify as a space-faring species." Down below, the council was discussing trade routes. The Federation wanted exclusive rights to mine asteroids in the Tau sector. The debate had been going on for hours. Most species had already stated their positions. Only the humans remained silent. "Ambassador," called Council Prime Hera, "does Earth have any position on this matter?" Stood slowly. She looked at her notes, then at the council members. "We would like to understand the mining process better. How do you extract materials without damaging the asteroid fields?" Several council members exchanged glances. It was a basic question. Even children knew how asteroid mining worked. "The process is standard," replied the delegate with barely hidden irritation. "Plasma cutters slice the rock. Gravity nets collect the pieces. Any educated species knows this." Nodded. "And what happens to the smaller debris? The pieces too small for the nets?" "They float away," snapped the. "This is irrelevant to trade discussions." "I see," said. She made another note. "Thank you for explaining." She sat down, snorted with amusement. "See, they ask questions like children. No wonder their colonies are so poorly defended." Watched face. There was something in her expression, not confusion or ignorance, something else, something that made his scales tingle with unease. The meeting continued. The Empire announced their expansion plans. They wanted to claim 3 star systems on the outer rim. The systems were currently occupied by human research colonies. "The Galactic Expansion Act allows for territorial claims on underdeveloped worlds," declared. "These human outposts qualify as underdeveloped. They have no significant defenses and minimal populations." Raised her hand. "Could you clarify the definition of underdeveloped?" "Fewer than 50,000 residents per planet, no orbital defense platforms, no military installations." His voice carried obvious satisfaction. "Your colonies meet all these criteria." "What is the process for challenging such claims?" asked. "Military resistance within 30 standard days," replied Council Prime Hera. "If the claiming party faces no opposition, the territories become theirs by law." Wrote this down carefully. "And if there is resistance, then it becomes a matter of strength," said. "The stronger species wins the territory." "I understand," said. "We will need to discuss this with our government." Noticed something odd. Did not seem worried. She did not ask for council mediation or protection. She simply accepted the information and moved on. After the meeting, approached the human delegation. Was packing her files into a simple briefcase. "Ambassador," said, "may I speak with you?" Looked up and smiled. It was a warm expression, but noticed it did not reach her eyes. "Of course, honored observer. How can I help you?" "I am curious about your response to the claims. You seemed very calm." "Should I have been upset?" asked. "The law is clear. We have 30 days to respond." "But your colonies are defenseless," said. "The military is legendary. They have conquered dozens of worlds." Closed her briefcase with a soft click. Defenseless is an interesting word. It means different things to different species. What does it mean to humans? Smile became something else entirely, something that made step backward. It means we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. "But you have no military presence in those systems," said. "Don't we?" asked. "How would you know?" Before could answer, continued. "You have been watching us for 6 months. What have you observed?" Thought carefully. "Your people ask many questions. You take detailed notes. You seem to study everything very carefully." "And what do students do after they finish studying?" They take tests, said automatically. Picked up her briefcase. Exactly. Thank you for the conversation, honored observer. It has been most educational. As she walked away, felt a chill run through his body. There had been something in her tone, something that suggested the humans were not as helpless as they appeared. Later that evening, reviewed the council recordings. He watched questions again. They had seemed innocent at first, but now he saw a pattern. She had asked about mining processes, orbital mechanics, military law, and defense protocols, not random questions, specific ones. Opened a secure channel to his superiors on the Iran. This is Observer. I need to file a priority report. Go ahead, Observer. The humans may not be what they appear to be. Explain. Looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3 human colonies were preparing for an invasion. I believe we may have underestimated them, severely. Based on what evidence? Based on the way Ambassador smiled when she thought no one was watching. It was not the smile of someone who expected to lose. 3 weeks later, the battle fleet departed for the Outer Rim. Requested permission to observe the conflict. His request was granted. As his ship prepared to leave, he wondered if the galaxy was about to learn something new about the quiet species from Earth. Something told him that nothing would ever be quite the same again. Station hung in space like a small metal flower, stared at it through the observation port of the Council peacekeeping vessel. The human research station looked fragile against the black stars. It had no visible weapons, no defensive shields, no fleet protecting it. This will be over quickly, said Captain, the officer commanding their observation mission. The fleet should arrive within the hour. Pressed his face closer to the window. The humans refused to evacuate. Completely refuse, Captain confirmed. They say they are still collecting data. Dr. Sarah, the station commander, insists their research cannot be interrupted. Research on what? Particle physics and quantum mechanics, according to their reports. Standard scientific work. Something bothered about this. Humans did not seem stupid. Why would they stay to die for some experiments? A communications officer called out, "We are receiving a message from station. Doctor requests permission to give our observer a tour of their facilities." Captain looked puzzled. A tour now with the fleet approaching. That is what she said, sir. Felt his scales change color with curiosity. I would like to accept. Are you certain? If the battle begins while you are aboard. I will take the risk, said. I want to understand what these humans think they are doing. An hour later, stood in station's main laboratory. Dr. Sarah was a tall woman with gray hair and steady hands. She moved between complex machines with practiced ease. Thank you for visiting us, Doctor said. Most species avoid us when trouble comes. Why did you not evacuate? Asked. The fleet is massive. Admiral brings enough firepower to destroy a moon. Doctor smiled. It was the same type of smile had given him, warm but somehow dangerous. Would you like to see what we have been working on? She led him to a large window overlooking the station's lower levels, looked down and saw laboratories filled with strange devices. Scientists worked calmly at their stations, as if no threat existed. Particle accelerators, Doctor explained. We have been testing new theories about matter and energy. Theories? How to make very small things have very large effects. An alarm began to sound. Not a panic alarm, just a gentle chime. Doctor said, they have arrived. Through the window, saw the fleet drop out of hyperspace. 50 massive warships appeared around the station. Each ship was 10 times larger than station. Their weapons powered up, creating a light show of deadly energy. Station, Admiral's voice boomed over the communications system. You have 5 minutes to surrender. Evacuate all personnel to your escape pods. This territory now belongs to the Empire. Doctor walked to a control panel. Admiral, this is Dr. Sarah, station commander. We respectfully decline your offer. You decline? Sounded amazed. You are one small station. I have 50 battleships. Yes, Doctor said calmly. We noticed. Then surrender now, or I will destroy you. Doctor looked at. Would you like to see something interesting? She pressed a series of buttons. The lights in the laboratory dimmed. Through the floor windows, saw the particle accelerators beginning to glow. Doctor said slowly, what exactly have you been researching? Defense systems, she replied. We have been testing whether a research station can protect itself. Outside the station, the ships moved into attack formation, their weapons charged to full power. Admiral's voice returned to the communications. Time is up, destroy the station. 50 warships fired at once. Enough energy to vaporize a small planet streaked toward station. Then something impossible happened. The energy beams stopped. They hit an invisible barrier around the station and scattered like light through a prism. The deadly attack became harmless fireworks painting the space around them in bright colors. Shield technology, Doctor explained to the stunned. Based on quantum field manipulation, we have been testing it for 8 months. Admiral's voice crackled with confusion. What happened? All ships report. No damage to target, came the replies. Weapons had no effect. Fire again, full power. The fleet unleashed another massive attack. Again, the energy scattered harmlessly around the station's invisible defenses. Doctor pressed more buttons. Now for the second part of our test. The particle accelerators below reached full power. Space around station began to bend and twist. The laws of physics seemed to stretch like rubber. What are you doing? Whispered. Demonstrating why you should not threaten human research stations, Doctor said. Beams of pure energy shot out from the station. But these were not normal weapons. They moved through space like living things, bending around obstacles, striking with perfect accuracy. The first beam hit a battleship. The massive vessel simply vanished, not destroyed, not exploded, just gone as if it had never existed. Quantum dissolution, Doctor explained. We removed the target from this dimension entirely. More beams fired, more ships disappeared. Admiral's voice became high-pitched with panic. Retreat, all ships retreat. But the beams were faster than the fleeing ships. One by one, the mighty fleet vanished into empty space. Within minutes, only a few scattered vessels remained, too far away to target. Doctor shut down the weapons. The space around station returned to normal. Test completed successfully, she announced to her staff. Stared at her in shock. You destroyed most of their fleet. We defended ourselves, Doctor corrected. They chose to attack a research station. We simply showed them why that was a poor decision. But the weapons, the technology, this should be impossible. Doctor smiled again. Humans have been studying impossible things for a very long time. We specialize in making the impossible work. She walked to another control panel. Now, if you will excuse me, I need to file our research report. Today's test provided excellent data. Research report. Oh yes, this was just one station, testing one type of defense system. We have many other stations conducting different experiments. Felt cold fear crawl through his body. How many stations? Enough, Doctor said. We have been very busy since joining the galactic community. As returned to the observation ship, his mind raced. The humans had not just defended themselves. They had revealed technology beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Weapons that could erase matter from existence. Shields that could stop planet-killing attacks. And this was just one research station. Captain met him at the airlock. What did you see in there? Looked back at station. It looked the same as before, small and harmless. But now he knew the truth. I saw the future, he said quietly, and I think we have all made a terrible mistake. The scattered ships were already fleeing toward their home territory. Soon, word would spread throughout the Empire. The weak humans had weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Wondered what would happen next. He had a feeling the galaxy was about to become a very different place. The emergency council session began within hours of the station incident. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the chamber. Everyone wanted to understand what had happened to the fleet. Sat in the observer section, watching the chaos below. Species that normally never agreed on anything were united in their confusion and fear. 50 battleships do not simply vanish, declared Prime Minister Hera. The Empire demands an explanation. Admiral stood at the table. His massive form shook with rage. The humans have secret weapons, weapons that violate the Galactic Arms Treaty. Ambassador rose slowly from the human delegation. She looked exactly the same as always, calm, collected, taking notes. Admiral, she said in her quiet voice, You attacked one of our research stations. We defended ourselves. This is permitted under galactic law. You destroyed my ships with impossible technology. We protected our people, replied, as any species would do. Slammed his fist on the table. This cannot stand. The Empire declares total war on humanity. A shocked silence filled the chamber. War declarations were rare in the galactic community. Most conflicts were settled through diplomacy or small border skirmishes. Nodded, we understand your position, Admiral. If that is your decision, we will respond accordingly. You will be crushed, growled. Our empire spans 100 worlds. Our military is legendary. Your few small colonies cannot stand against us. Perhaps, said, we shall see. She gathered her papers and left the chamber. The other delegates stared after her. No one had expected such a calm response to a war declaration. Later that day, received a message from. She invited him to visit Earth as an official observer during the coming conflict. The message was polite and formal. It gave no hint of what humanity might be planning. Accepted immediately. The journey to Earth took 3 days. As his ship approached the Sol system, expected to see a world preparing for desperate defense. Instead, he saw something that made his scales turn pale blue with shock. Earth was not alone. Hidden behind the planet's moon were massive orbital shipyards. Hundreds of construction platforms built ships at incredible speed. The vessels emerging from these yards were unlike anything had ever seen. Sleek and predatory, like metal sharks swimming through space. Welcome to Sol System, came a voice over the communications. This is Admiral Sarah Torres, commanding Earth Defense Network. Observer, you are cleared for landing at Luna Base. Luna Base was built into the moon itself. As Shuttle descended into the underground facility, he saw mile after mile of military installations. Fighter craft hangars, weapons storage, troop barracks. This was not a recent construction. This had taken years to build. Admiral Torres met him at the landing pad. She was a middle-aged human with silver hair and sharp eyes. Like all humans had met, she seemed calm, but there was something else in her manner. Confidence. The confidence of someone holding all the best cards in a game. Thank you for coming, Admiral Torres said. We wanted a neutral observer to witness what happens next. What will happen next? Asked. The Empire will learn why peaceful species sometimes survive better than aggressive ones. She led him through the base. At every turn, saw more evidence of massive military preparation. Soldiers trained with advanced weapons. Engineers worked on technologies he could not identify. Command centers coordinated activities across what seemed like hundreds of locations. How long have you been building this? Asked. Since we first made contact with the galactic community, Admiral Torres replied. We learned very quickly that space is not a safe place. But your reports to the Council showed only small defensive forces. Admiral Torres smiled. Our reports were accurate. We do have small defensive forces on each world, but we never said those were our only forces. They entered a vast control room overlooking the lunar surface. Through the windows, could see ships launching from hidden hangars, hundreds of them, each one larger and more advanced than the ships he had seen at station. Observer, Admiral Torres said, let me show you something. She activated a holographic display. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Tiny lights marked human colonies and outposts. Had seen this type of map before. Usually, new species had a few dozen lights scattered across a small region. The human map had thousands of lights. They covered half the galaxy. This is impossible, whispered. Humans have only been in space for 200 years. Correct, Admiral Torres said, but we have been very busy. She touched the display. Each light expanded to show detailed information. What had thought were simple colonies revealed themselves as complex military installations. Mining worlds were actually weapons factories. Research stations were testing grounds for advanced technology. Trading posts were supply depots for a vast military network. Your colony's ships, said slowly. They were not just carrying families and farmers. Oh, they carried families and farmers, Admiral Torres confirmed. The farmers just happened to be combat engineers. The families just happened to include military specialists. We have been preparing for this day since we first learned we were not alone in the universe. A communications officer called out. Admiral, the fleet is approaching the sector. Estimated force, 2,000 ships. Admiral Torres nodded. Activate Network Protocol 7. All stations are weapons-free. The holographic display changed. Across the galaxy, human installations began to glow brighter. Watched in amazement as the peaceful research stations and mining colonies revealed their true nature. Weapons platforms rose from planetary surfaces. Hidden shipyards opened to release massive fleets. Defense networks that had been invisible suddenly appeared on sensors. 2,000 ships, Admiral Torres said. Impressive, we were expecting more. Moore asked. 2,000 is a massive fleet. The Empire has 5,000 ships total, Admiral Torres explained. We were hoping they would commit their entire force. This makes our job more difficult. Your job? Admiral Torres looked at him seriously. The galaxy needs to learn that aggression has consequences. The Empire has been bullying smaller species for centuries. Today, that ends. On the display, watched human fleets move into position. They did not defend. They attacked, simultaneously, across dozens of systems at once. You are not just defending yourselves, realized. You are invading them. We are ending their ability to threaten anyone ever again, Admiral Torres corrected. There is a difference. The battle reports began coming in. Human forces struck military bases with surgical precision, not random destruction, careful, planned attacks on specific targets. All shipyards destroyed, reported a communications officer. Weapons factories offline, military command centers eliminated. Admiral Torres nodded. Phase 2 is complete. Begin Phase 3. What is Phase 3? Asked. Occupation and reconstruction, Admiral Torres replied. We are going to rebuild society without the military aggression. Stared at her in shock. You are conquering their entire empire. We are liberating it, Admiral Torres said. The people deserve better than endless war. They will get the chance to choose a different path. On the display, human ships surrounded every world. Not attacking now, just watching, waiting. Admiral is requesting surrender terms, called a communications officer. Tell him we will discuss terms when all military forces have been disarmed, Admiral Torres replied. Until then, we wait. Felt dizzy, everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong. They were not weak newcomers to the galaxy. They were the most prepared military force anyone had ever seen. Why did you hide all this? He asked. Admiral Torres looked out at the stars. Because peaceful solutions are always better than violent ones, we hoped we would never need to reveal our true capabilities. But you were ready. We were ready, she confirmed. Humans learned long ago that the best way to avoid war is to be absolutely certain you can win it. As watched the reports come in, he realized the galaxy had just changed forever. The humans had not just defended themselves. They had rewritten the balance of power in a single day. And they had done it all while seeming weak and helpless. He wondered what other surprises they might be hiding. Stood on the bridge of the human battleship Defiant as it moved through space. Admiral Torres had invited him to witness human military doctrine firsthand. What he saw changed everything he thought he knew about warfare. The ship itself was magnificent. Every surface gleamed with purpose. The crew moved with quiet efficiency that reminded of predators stalking prey. No wasted motion, no unnecessary noise, just deadly focus. Approaching home world, reported the navigation officer. Local defense fleet is taking position. How many ships? Asked Captain, the Defiant's commanding officer. 300, sir. They are broadcasting surrender requests. Captain studied the tactical display. The fleet was arranged in a defensive formation around their planet, standard military procedure when facing invasion. Open communications, Captain ordered. The main screen showed Admiral's face. The commander looked exhausted. His empire was crumbling around him. In 3 days, human forces had destroyed every military installation outside the home system. Human commander said, I request terms of surrender. My people are not your enemy. This war can end now. Captain considered this. Admiral, your forces fired on our research station. You declared total war on humanity. Your empire has spent centuries attacking weaker species. Why should we accept your surrender now? Because we have learned our mistake, replied. You have shown your superior strength. We acknowledge your victory. Strength is not the lesson we came to teach, Captain said quietly. He turned to his communications officer. "Signal the fleet. Begin cultural broadcast protocol." Watched in confusion as every human ship in the system began transmitting simultaneously. But they were not sending military communications or surrender demands. They were broadcasting music. Human music filled the space around the fleet. Beautiful, complex compositions that spoke of loss and hope and the struggle to survive. Then came poetry, read in calm human voices. Stories of human history, both tragic and triumphant. "What are you doing?" asked. "Psychological warfare," Captain explained. "They understand strength and fear. They do not understand what drives us. We are showing them." On the screen, Admiral looked confused. "What is this? Some kind of attack?" "It is what you tried to destroy," Captain replied. "Our culture, our art, our reasons for existing. You declared war not just on our bodies, but on our souls. We want you to understand what you were willing to eliminate." The music continued. Ninth Symphony echoed through space. Human voices recited poetry about love and sacrifice. Children's laughter mixed with the sound of wind through forests on Earth. Saw something extraordinary happen. The fleet began to waver. Not their ships, but their resolve. These were warriors who understood battle, but they had never experienced anything like this cultural assault. "Sir," called the tactical officer, "the ships are powering down their weapons." "They are crying," reported the communications officer with amazement. "Some of the crew members are crying." Captain nodded with satisfaction. Phase 2 of cultural protocol. Now the broadcasts changed. They showed human children playing in parks, families sharing meals, artists creating beautiful sculptures, scientists making discoveries that helped all species. The full spectrum of human civilization displayed for their enemies to see. "This is what you declared war against," Captain said to Admiral. "Not just our military, our entire way of life." Admiral's voice shook when he replied. "We did not know. We saw only your weakness in council meetings." "Our diplomacy was not weakness," Captain corrected. "It was choice. We chose to be peaceful because we know the cost of war, but when you forced war upon us, you unleashed something you were not prepared for." "What do you mean?" Captain stood. For the first time since had met him, the human officer showed emotion. His face hardened into something terrible and beautiful at the same time. "You awakened human fury. Not the blind rage of animals, but the calculated anger of a species that has survived every disaster our universe could create. We do not fight just to win battles. We fight to ensure our children can live in peace." The tactical display showed more human fleets arriving in the system. But these were not warships. They were construction vessels and medical ships and supply transports. "Admiral," Captain continued, "you have a choice to make. You can continue this war and watch us systematically dismantle your entire civilization, or you can surrender and help us build something better." "What kind of surrender?" "Complete disarmament of your military forces, trials for war criminals who have attacked innocent species, reconstruction of your society under human guidance until you can govern yourselves peacefully." Admiral was silent for long minutes. Finally he spoke. "And if we refuse?" Captain's expression became stone. "Then we show you what human fury really looks like." As if responding to his words, every human ship in the system powered up their weapons simultaneously. The space around them began to bend and twist as their exotic technologies activated. Recognize some of the effects from station, but 1,000 times. "We have spent the last 3 days being gentle," Captain said. "We destroyed only military targets. We avoided civilian casualties. We gave your forces every chance to withdraw peacefully, but if you force us to continue this war, we will stop being gentle." The tactical display showed what the human fleet was capable of. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could stop stars from shining. Their technology was so advanced it seemed like magic. "You see," Captain explained to the terrified Admiral, "humans have a unique relationship with violence. We hate it. It disgusts us. But when we must use it to protect what we love, we become very, very good at it." Admiral's surrender came within minutes. As the fleet powered down and prepared to be boarded, finally understood what he had witnessed. "You were never just defending yourselves," he said to Captain. "No," the captain agreed. "We were teaching a lesson. The galaxy needed to learn that peaceful species are not the same as helpless species." "But the fury, the anger I saw in your face." Captain looked out at the home world, where millions of beings lived in fear of what would happen next. "The fury is real," he said quietly. "But it is controlled, directed. We do not fight because we enjoy it. We fight because someone has to protect the innocent. Someone has to ensure that bullies do not rule the galaxy." Over the next few hours, watched human forces occupy the home world, but it was not a brutal conquest. Medical teams helped wounded soldiers. Engineers began repairing damaged infrastructure. Teachers started organizing schools. "What happens now?" asked. Captain smiled, and this time it was the warm expression remembered from the human diplomats. "Now we keep our promise," he said. "We help the people build a better society, one that does not require constant warfare to maintain order. And if other species threaten the peace..." Captain's expression hardened again briefly. "Then they will learn the same lesson they learned. Human patience has limits, but human determination does not." As the Defiant prepared to leave the system, realized he had witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. A species that could unleash devastating fury when threatened, but chose mercy when victory was achieved. The humans had not just won a war. They had demonstrated a new way of thinking about power and responsibility. And suspected this was only the beginning of the changes they would bring to the galaxy. 1 year later stood before the reformed Galactic Council in their new meeting chamber. The station itself was different now, built with human engineering and human ideals. Open spaces filled with light, gardens where delegates could walk and think in peace, art from 100 different worlds decorating the walls. But the biggest change was not in the building. It was in the beings who gathered here. "Honored delegates," began his address to the council. "You have asked me to report on the changes in our galaxy since the war. The report is complex, but the conclusion is simple. Everything is different." He looked around the chamber. Representatives from across the galaxy listened with attention he had never seen before. In the past, council meetings were often ignored or treated as minor inconveniences. Now, every species sent their best diplomats and gave them full authority to make decisions. "The most obvious change is in military matters," continued. "Aggressive expansion has ended. The Galactic Protection Act, proposed by humanity and passed by unanimous vote, makes territorial conquest illegal under any circumstances." Ambassador sat at the human delegation table, still taking notes as she had a year ago. But now other delegates watched her carefully, trying to understand her thoughts. The quiet woman who had seemed so harmless was now recognized as one of the most important beings in the galaxy. "The enforcement mechanism for this act is clear," said. "Any species that attacks another will face human intervention. This is not a threat, it is simply reality." In the months since the war, 3 separate conflicts had been prevented by human warnings. When the Federation had considered invading the Talax system, a single human ship had appeared in their space. No weapons were fired, no threats were made. The ship simply transmitted a message: "We hope you will reconsider." The invasion was canceled within hours. "But the changes go deeper than military matters," continued. "Human reconstruction efforts in former territory have created a new model for civilization." The transformation had been remarkable. Under human guidance, former worlds had become centers of learning and culture. The warrior society that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries had evolved into something entirely different. Scientists and artists now held the positions once reserved for generals and warlords. "The people themselves requested to remain under human protection," said. "Not because they were forced to, but because they had seen what was possible when violence was not the primary tool of governance." Admiral, now calling himself Professor, had become one of the galaxy's most vocal advocates for peaceful development. His writings on the transition from military to civilian society were studied throughout known space. "The human approach to governance has spread to other worlds," continued. 17 species have requested human advisors to help reform their political systems. 6 more have asked for protection from aggressive neighbors. This had created an interesting situation. Humanity had become the dominant military power in the galaxy without seeking conquest. They protected others, but demanded nothing in return except a commitment to peaceful coexistence. "The economic changes have been equally dramatic," reported. "Human technology sharing has increased productivity across all sectors. Medical advances have extended for most species. Agricultural improvements have ended hunger on 47 worlds. It had taken time for other species to trust human generosity. Surely there must be hidden costs or secret plans for domination. But months passed, and humans continued to give without taking. They shared their most advanced technologies freely. They asked for nothing except the opportunity to build friendships. Perhaps most importantly, said, we have seen the emergence of what humans call collaborative defense. Species that once stood alone now work together under human coordination to protect shared interests. The new defense networks were revolutionary. Instead of each world maintaining its own military, species pooled resources under human leadership. The result was more security at lower cost. Pirates and raiders found themselves facing overwhelming opposition wherever they struck. Some of you have asked whether humanity seeks to rule the galaxy, said. The evidence suggests otherwise. In every case where humans have gained authority, they have worked to transfer that authority back to local populations as quickly as possible. This was perhaps the most surprising aspect of human behavior. Other species accumulated power and held it jealously. Humans accumulated power and gave it away as soon as others were ready to use it responsibly. Ambassador rose to address the council. Observer, thank you for your comprehensive report. May I add some perspective from the human point of view? Of course, Ambassador. Walked to the center of the chamber, just as she had a year ago when Admiral had declared war. But now the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of mockery and dismissal, there was respectful attention. A year ago, many of you saw humans as weak newcomers to the galactic community, said. You were partially correct. We were newcomers, but weakness and strength are not what they seem. She gestured to the diverse gathering of delegates. Every species here has something to contribute. The Oran have unmatched artistic vision. They are master engineers. The Talak understand philosophy in ways we are still learning to appreciate. Felt his scales change color with pride. It was true that other species now sought out Oran artists to beautify their worlds. Humans contribute one thing above all others, continued. We specialize in seeing potential where others see problems. We look at conflict and see opportunities for cooperation. We look at enemies and see friends who simply have not been properly introduced. She paused, letting her words sink in. The fury you witnessed during the war was real. When our research stations were attacked, when our people were threatened, we responded with everything we had. But that fury was never about conquest. It was about protection. Looked directly at the empty delegation table. By their own choice, the former worlds now sent representatives to a separate council that focused on reconstruction and development rather than galactic politics. We unleashed our fury not to destroy but to save them from themselves, said. A society built on constant aggression is a society that will eventually destroy itself. We simply accelerated that process and provided an alternative. She returned to her seat, but remained standing. The question before this council is not whether humans will dominate the galaxy. We have already demonstrated that domination is not our goal. The question is whether we will work together to build something better than what came before. Looked around the chamber. He saw species that had been enemies for centuries now sitting together, planning joint projects. He saw former warriors studying art and philosophy. He saw a galaxy that was learning to solve problems through cooperation rather than violence. In conclusion, he said, my report states that humanity has fundamentally altered galactic civilization, not through conquest but through example. They showed us that strength can be used to protect rather than oppress. They demonstrated that the most powerful are often those who choose not to use their power. As the council session ended, delegates gathered in small groups to discuss new projects and partnerships. The formal proceedings were important, but the real work of building a better galaxy happened in these informal conversations. Approached as she packed her ever-present briefcase, Ambassador, may I ask you something? Of course. That day a year ago when Admiral declared war, you smiled. Did you know then how this would end? Considered the question carefully. I knew that aggressive species often mistake patience for weakness, and I knew that patience is not weakness when it is backed by unshakable strength. You planned all of this. We planned for many possibilities, replied, but we hoped it would never be necessary. Peace is always better than war, even when war is just. She closed her briefcase and looked around the chamber. The galaxy needed to learn that peaceful species can also be powerful species. That lesson has been learned. Now we can focus on more interesting challenges. Such as... Smiled and realized it was the same smile she had given him a year ago. Warm, but with hidden depths. Exploration beyond our galaxy, meeting new species, building things that have never been built before. The universe is vast, observer, and humans have always been curious about what lies beyond the horizon. As she walked away, understood the final truth about humanity. They had not just changed the galaxy to bring peace. They had changed it to create a stable foundation for even greater adventures. The fury he had witnessed was never an end in itself. It was simply a tool for building something better. And now that the building was done, humans were already looking toward the next project. Smiled as he began writing his final report. The galaxy would never be the same, and perhaps he thought that was exactly what it had needed all along.